Okay, you should have the link should be.
I finished it already.
You fit, so you can help us out.
But I had to already be home in 10 minutes. I'm short on time. It takes 10 minutes to go home.
And you should be able to get the link. And if you don't mind, text it to me so I could send it to somebody. All right.
It's supposed to Krishna Al-Mitzvah for a reason. It's called Al-Mitzvah for a reason.
Yeah. I'm calling it. And how much on I don't know the card. We're going back to John with login pad, okay?
You don't have WhatsApp, huh?
No.
Okay, so you send it first time. Okay.
Just ask them.
Kan goed.
I checked the statistics.
Oh, ja, tuurlijk, je van Leibach.
Ja.
Bierdel.
The financial island.
I love when
Should I be my phone?
Okay, guys, you're live on
Oh, that didn't.
You could say things, just say good things. That's good things. Take a tissue. Is it? It's good. If we had the permanent link, then we would be able to start right away.
Here you go. Paste. Okay.
You sent it to me? Oh, okay.
Yeah, there has to be. I mean, I'm sure you.
There is. I'll wait session by next week. I'll take care of it. Okay, so last week we learned until Ois Yud in the Maimer Byom Ahtei Asar Yom, and by getting to this point, we finished one whole inyan in the Maimer. The Rebbe finishes explaining Anon Nasiv Malka. So, Anon Nasiv Malka, the Medrash of Anon Nasiv Malka, the Rebbe finishes his explanation of it at the end of Tes, and now we're holding Yud. So we'll do a recap of all of the Madregas that the Rebbe discusses up until this point, so that we can move on to the next section of the Maimer. We'll do 2 more shiurim to the end of the Maimer. So the Medrash says, Anon Nasiv Malka, that a Yid chooses the Eibishter, and the first Madrega that the Rebbe explained is that he doesn't make the mistake that Avodah Zarah, Chas v'Shalom, are the ones, the Kechavim u'Mazalis, that they're not the ones who Chas v'Shalom create the energy that gives life to this world. And not only that they're not the ones that create the energy, a Yid also doesn't make the mistake of thinking that they have the choice whether or not the Eibishter's energy can come down into this world. A Yid understands that the Kechavim u'Mazalis, the stars and the constellations, have absolutely no say, no control whatsoever in what happens in Gashmi Selam Hazeh. And we explained that this is not only that, first of all, when you get to the Kechavim Mazalos themselves, you can also see Begashmis. It's not only spiritual things. You can see Begashmis, how all the energy in the world, right, the weather system, and ultimately every amount of energy that there is in the world comes from the sun. So you would think that that it's the sun that's giving energy to the world. Begashmis, you can understand it. And also, more importantly, when it comes to our own personal lives, when it comes to our business, that you would think that it's the rules of business, it's how ruthless I am in business, how many connections I have, even if it means those connections, to have those connections, I have to do things that are chas v'shalom against Yiddishkeit. There's this Yid I saw once on a podcast. He's from Borough Park, I think. He's a financial advisor, and he walks around with a beard, proudly so, with a big yarmulke. And somebody, they asked him, how could you sit down with a client, and the guy is much more in his type of world. He's much more likely to get the business. How do you come in as a from a Yid? You can't play golf with him. You can't eat his food. You can't go to other types of entertainment with him. You're talking over here with billionaires. This guy sits down. How do you get close to them? So he says, I'll tell you a story. I one time had a meeting. The firm that he works for sent 2 of their top financial advisors to meet with a major client that they were trying to get. And they sent 2, in case he doesn't like this one, maybe he'll like the other one. So he says, the meeting was in the country club. And the guy sat down and, he said he was the ultimate guy. He was a real gentleman and somebody knows how to enjoy this world. They sat down, they golfed, and they did all the other things that goyim do together. And finally, then the next day was his meeting. They sat down to eat. And, the guy asks him, could you offer? So yeah, you can bring me, a seltzer in a plastic cup. So there's nothing else to do. So they didn't have a choice. They had to talk about business. So they say so they ended up reviewing the guy's latest tax returns and financial statements. And while this financial advisor, the Yid, is going through the statements, so he realizes there's a major error, something that could cause him big tzaris in his taxes, either legally or at least as penalties. It was layudim for him. So he said, don't worry about it. Tomorrow we're going to take care of it. And the next day he had a whole team of accountants working on it, whatever, and they resolved the matter. So he got the business. So he says, could you imagine if I would have gone just like the other guy? So say this, I ate, I enjoyed a good meal, I golfed, and I did the other recreational activities together with him. In what way do I stand out? Why would I get the business? Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Over here, because I behaved like a Yid. And the only thing I agreed to do with him socially was to drink a cup of seltzer with him, not wine, not food, not anything else. So we ended up talking about business. And just because of this, I saved him millions of dollars in tzaris, and I got the business. So over here you see, Begashmi is how it's not the ways of the world, it's not the rules of business that determine how a Yid gets his money. This is a story that I heard from the person who said it. It's not a mashal. It actually happened. Can't remember his name. So a Yid recognizes this. A Yid understands this. And if he's at business and he has to make a decision whether or not to cheat, whether or not, to hide the truth a little bit, or to daven with a minyan, skip mikveh, learn his shurim that he has every day, or spend more time at work, the Yid knows that all of those cheshbon is doing any of those things is avodah zarah. It's serving idols. It's not avodah zarah mamish, but it's turning things that are not the Eibush. They're saying that they have control. And therefore, I have to not do what Torah wants me to do right now and do that. So Yid rejects that. Hitaka goes, Torah says you have to do business. Torah says, Sheishes Yamim Tavid. He goes and he works. And he doesn't stop find a job as a flipping burger somewhere, because you have to do a job that Al Piteva Elam, that Tzemach Tzedek explains, Al Piteva Elam is going to bring the parnasa you need. So he does that too. But because Torah said. So what's the difference? He's not doing it because he really believes the world is going to give him the money. He's doing it because Torah said. So now, if there's anything that's against Torah, he's not going to do it. If he was doing the Sheishes Yamim Tavid because he believed that that's where his panas is coming from his work, so if anything in the world seems to be telling him that he has to do something unfair or work extra, so he'll do that. But if he's doing it only because Torah said, so it's impossible that to go against Torah is going to end up giving him more parnasa, so he never chooses that. However, the Rebbe says the choice of the Yid is actually much greater than that, because in this level, the Yid still wants the hashpah. The main thing by him is to get the benefits, the good things that he gets. However, by Yid, it's much higher. He doesn't want the hashpah. He just wants the kedusha. He wants to be connected to kedusha. And if being connected to kedusha means that he's going to get less hashpah, a Yid, because he's a Yid, chooses to be connected to kedusha and get less hashpah. And that's pshat anon nasiv malka. I'm not interested in all of the benefits and all of the goodies, the pleasures of the world. I'm interested only in the Eibush, in kedusha. Then the Rebbe says that you would think that the reason why the Yid foregoes the hashpah and chooses kedusha is because there's some benefit to him in kedusha. So the Rebbe explains, no. The anon nasiv malka, my choice in kedusha, is not because it's good for me in any way, shape, or form. It's because kedusha is what the Eibush wants. Klippus is what the Eibush does not want. And I don't want to be associated in any way, shape, or form to something that does not come from the Eibishter. Even though a Yid could get his chayes from Kedusha Rachman, from Klipper Rachman Litzlan. A Yid could, and that's the way it goes in Galus. Nevertheless, he consciously chooses and says, because Klippers are against the Ratzon of the Eibishter, I don't want them. Why do I want Kedusha? Because Kedusha is the Ratzon of the Eibishter. It's not about me, it's about the Eibishter. Then the Rebbe explains that this choice that the Yid makes is not only because of Seichel. It's not only because he understood it. Seichel is not the deepest truth of a person. We all know that one day we think one way, the next day we could change our mind. Even when we're convinced of something in our mind, it's not our real truth. Yeah, you say, as I've said, you say, emes atorisha atu achrein. This emes over there is a little deeper than Seichel, than understanding. Rabbi Wahlberg, right, used to live here in Crown Heights. So he says he used to smoke. And he says that he wanted to stop, and he understood all the reasons why he had to stop. He looked into it because he was trying to help himself. So he started up about how it's not good for him, but he couldn't stop. So when did he finally succeed in stop smoking? He says, when I turned the cigarette into my enemy, when I started feeling that this cigarette, it hates me, it's gonna, chas v'shalom, it could harm a person, and it could even kill a person. When he went beyond Seichel, because Seichel isn't so true, so then when he felt in his gut that this cigarette is an enemy to him, it's a sign, it's a reidif, he wants to kill him, so he said then he was able to drop it, no problems. So Seichel isn't the deepest truth. What's a deep truth? So yeah, feeling that something is an enemy it goes a little deeper than Seichel, but the ultimate deepest truth is the neshama. And the Rebbe explains that the anon nasiv malka is because chelki avaya umro nafshi. My neshama chooses the Eibishter. So this that a Yid says anon nasiv malka is with his complete truth, with his deepest existence, with his innermost existence that he has, his neshama. That's why he chooses the Eibishter, way beyond the conviction and way beyond the strength of Seichel. However, says the Rebbe, and this is critical because we're going to get back to it today, Mirza Hashem, the neshama can influence the Seichel so that the Seichel also agrees with this desire of the neshama. He chooses the Eibishter because that's what the neshama wants. However, because that's what the neshama wants, it convinces and influences his Seichel that the Seichel agrees that the right thing to do is to choose the Eibishter and only for the Eibishter, not for any other reason. And at this point, we established that the Yid says, Anon Nasiv Malka, I choose the Eibishter, is because of his neshama. So now we have to go through a whole other set of levels of explaining what just does it mean that the neshama chooses the Eibishter. Just like in Seichel, we had many different levels, right? To not believe that the Kechavim Umazalos are the ones that create the energy of the world. To not believe that they are the ones who have the choice in giving the Eibishter's energy in the world. To reject them, even if it means that you're going to get less because you want to be connected with Kedusha. And to do it not for any benefits. Those were many madregas in a rational understanding. Certainly when it comes to the choice of the neshama, there's also many madregas that we can understand this connection and this choice of the neshama to the Eibishter. And the Rebbe explains that the choice of the neshama is to reject even things of Kedusha. Not chas v'shalom to reject it, to say that it's not good, but that's not what it's interested in. Even malachim, which are holy and connected to the Eibishter and bottled to the Eibishter. Even spheres, the sphere, as a sphere Atzilus. And even what's beyond that, Gan Eden and or lower than the sphere Atzilus, Gan Eden Elen and Gan Eden Atachtin, the Yid rejects it. Not this is the reason why he does Torah mitzvahs. He doesn't do Torah mitzvahs because of Gan Eden Elen and Gan Eden Atachtin. In order to reveal the existence of the Eibishter in the world, you need the sphere Sekdashis. And he connects to them by doing the mitzvahs, and he brings down all the hamshachas from all of those high places. But that's not what he wants. That's not why he's doing it. He wants to be connected to the Eibishter. And the Rebbe explains it in an even deeper sense. That never mind that the Yid isn't interested in Kedusha, when Kedusha, in the levels of Kedusha that's good for him, that he says, I'm going to put aside my entire what's good for me, and what even in Kedusha, it's even more than that. He rejects even anything in Kedusha, even though it reveals the Eibishter, even though the Madrigas of Kedusha, the Spheres, and what's higher than the Spheres, they reveal the Eibishter. So you would think that the Yid would say, because they reveal the Eibishter, this is how the Eibishter revealed himself. The Eibishter himself we can't see. He revealed himself through the Spheres. So I'm going to koch, and I'm going to want, and I'm going to try to connect myself and to acknowledge and to be able to feel and to sense these Madrigas in Kedusha, because that's how the Eibishter, I can see the Eibishter, so to speak, by seeing those Spheres of the Kedusha. The Yid rejects this, and one final thing, the Yid rejects even a Madrega that's higher than the Spheres that reveals the Eibishter in the truest sense that's possible. In other words, the Spheres, each Sphere reveals the Eibishter in accordance to what the Sphere is. If it's a Vart of Chesed, if it's a Vart of Gvura, of Tiferes, v'chulu v'chulu. Even Madregas that are higher than the Spheres, that reveal whatever is possible to be revealed from the Eibishter. Anything that will ever be known from the Eibishter is revealed through these Madregas. It's the truest representation and revelation of the Eibishter. The Yid rejects this also. He says he does not want that. Why? Because it's a revelation of the Eibishter. It's not the Eibishter himself. Now the Rebbe asks, so what's the connection between this Vart in Anon Nasiv Malka to the Pashat Vart in the Medrash of Anon Nasiv Malka that a Yid doesn't serve Avodah Zarah, right? We're explaining that a Yid chooses the Eibishter. He doesn't want Gan Eden. He doesn't want even the revelations of the Eibishter in Gan Eden. He wants only the Eibishter himself. What does this have to do with whether or not to serve Avodah Zarah? How does one connect to the other? And they have explained that by a Yid choosing the Giluyim of Gan Eden, what he's saying in essence is that he's interested in something that's good for him. The revelations of Gan Eden, it's holy things, but it's something that's good for him. So he's interested in something that's good for him, as opposed to focusing purely on connecting to the Eibishter. And another flaw in it is that he gives importance to those things. And by taking that approach, either of taking the approach where you're interested in what's good for you, even if it's in Kedusha, or taking the approach that you give importance to things that are not the Eibishter himself, from this could come actual idol worship. The same mindset could lead a person many levels later to actually either think that it's worth it for him to connect to Avodah Zarah, or even worse than that, that Avodah Zarah itself actually has importance. Like we explained, we don't only mean Avodah Zarah, we mean any type of importance that a Yid gives to the ways of this world. If he feels that it's important for him to become a millionaire, if he feels that it's important for him to have covered, because he knows how to give good advice, or for whatever other reason that people will praise him for, if those things are important to him, he could end up stumbling, Rahman al-Islam, in the worst way. The only way is when to a Yid there's nothing of importance at all, only the Eibishter himself. And that's the end of the Pirush of Anan Nasiv Malka. And now we're going to continue in Yud. They've explained in Ois Ches that Anan Nasiv Malka is a similar word, a very close word to the idea of Mili Bashamayim, that the Alter Rebbe said that ich will nicht ein Gan Eden, ich will nicht ein Elam Haba, ich will mehr nicht as dich allein. So the Rebbe is going to show just another way, the way they're really saying the same thing. Yet another connection between these two ideas, and it's shaykh that they're mamish the same thing. The Iker Inyan of Avodas Kachavim, what do people do when they serve Avodas Kachavim Mazos? We're not talking about the fact that they sin. We're not talking about the fact that it's that it's a lie, that it's a falsehood. We're trying to understand what way of thinking is this? What personality is this? So the Rebbe says that the Iker Inyan of Avodas Kachavim is somebody who mistakenly thinks something that's a means to an end to be the main thing, right? And everything there's the end goal, what you're after, and there's the way you get there. So they consider the way you get there to be the main point. Start with a few simple examples. For example, you boil up a pot of eggs. Yeah, so you fill up the pot with water, and then you put in the eggs, and then you cook the water. What happens when the eggs are cooked? You spill out all the water. I don't understand. You filled up the water. You filled up the pot. Why are you spilling out the water? Didn't you want it? Says, yeah, it was just a means to an end. Yeah, I was just trying to get the eggs. Who's the guy in Lowen's Bakery once told me a joke about this. It says there was once a guy, he bought a dozen eggs, for whatever it is, for $6. So for each egg he paid $50. He paid 50 cents, and he puts he cooks up the eggs, he takes it out to the marketplace, and he's selling them for 50 cents each. So somebody comes over to him and he says, I don't understand. You bought them for 50 cents a piece, and now you're selling them for 50 cents a piece. What kind of benefit do you have over here? So he says, yeah, but now I have the water. so
I used to a few less waters.
So now I have the water. Because to cook the eggs, he had to fill up the pot with water. So now through the whole process, he has not only the 50 cents that that he spent and now got, but that equals to zero. He also has the water, and it's hatz noch eichet. Yeah. So there's so many ways we could so many, almost everything has a means and then it has an end. Yeah. If you ever saw the way they mine diamonds, commercially in this day and age, they literally, they don't move tons of rocks, they move mountains. There's this massive machinery, chews up the mountain, it crushes it into small stones, and it must be hundreds of thousands of tons of stone, and they put it down a conveyor belt once it's crushed, and they have different ways of inspecting it and detecting. They're looking for the teeny little diamonds inside all of this crushed rock. So they move hundreds of thousands of tons to yield a few thousand carats of diamonds. It's lahafli. So taking off the top of a mountain and all of that effort that they went through is just a means to an end. What do they do with the rock afterwards? They discard it. Maybe they sell it as gravel or whatever it is. But all of this work went, for a teeny yield compared to all the work that it was a means to an end. And you run into a lot of trouble if you make a mistake and turn the means into the ikar, into the main thing. Yeah, for example, you go to a chasana. Person goes to a chasana, so his whole koch is, what's the food and what's the band and who's the company going to be and who am I going to see and who's going to see me. Yeah, he's turning all of these things that are side things. He forgot about the chas and kala, the mitzvah of simchas chas and v'kala. He went for the food, he went for the dancing, and he went for the band. There was a singer there. What's this person's flaw? What's his suffering? Where is he off? Where is his thinking wrong? He's turning the means to an end. It happens in so many ways. All of the government regulations that stifle the economy, they started off as a good thing. Yeah, for example, building codes. There's definitely room for building codes. Anybody who buys a house and tries to renovate it is terribly irked by somebody who will say that there's a point in building codes because they gave you the yarn. I have a friend who has a warehouse somewhere in middle America, and he's doing a good business. In other words, when I mean to say good business, he's providing a valuable service. There's people every day who rely on his business, on shipping the goods. And without that, they won't have their toilet paper, they won't have their Pampers, they won't have their drinks. He's doing important work. Comes in an inspector, from the city and sees over there there's not enough power. The heating isn't, according to spec. And he shuts the business down. All of the employees in the business now aren't getting paid. They aren't getting paid. All of the people are relying on him sending out the goods aren't getting. So what happened? What went wrong over here? Because if you don't have building codes, then people will do cheap construction and buildings will collapse. Yeah, you see this in third world countries. But what happened? The government agencies turned the means into an end. They forgot that the whole purpose of the building codes is to make life safer, more pleasant, and generally better for the people living in the country. And they turned the building codes into a thing. It's holy, holy, holy on its own. The building codes are holy. It's a very flawed way of thinking. And Deb says that in essence is what Avodah Zarah is. He says like this, and in two ways. Say when it comes to the kachavim u'mazalis, the stars and the constellations, the truth of the matter is they're only a means through which the Eibishter brings down the hashpah to this world. However, the mistake that the people who serve the stars and the constellations as idols, they make a mistake in thinking that this tool that the Eibishter uses to bring the energy and the warmth and the heat down into the world and all of the other things, really, all of the hashpahs that come down to the world, they think that it comes from there. That's the main thing. This tool of the sun and of the stars is the main thing, and that's why they serve it. So to the Ashpais Gashmias, which come through the Kechavim Mazalas, all of the physical goodness in the world, they believe Shashpas. What's the truth of these Gashmistic things? Shashpas, why does the Eibishter create so much Gashmistic goodness in order that we should use it to serve the Eibishter? Why is there an internet so that you could be able to stream a shir? So that you could spread the word of the Eibishter. It used to be that if you're living in Crown Heights, so how could you influence somebody living across the world? Now you have a new thing. Wherever you are, you could influence and you could bring kedusha, helikite to Yidden wherever they may be. And so too, everything in Gashmias is there to serve the Eibishter. The people who serve the Getchkes, they believe mechashmis agashmis leikir. They say, why did the Eibishter give me wealth? Why did the Eibishter create good food? Why did the Eibishter create music and all of the other things in the world? He created it for them themselves, for the pleasure that you could get out of these things, not to serve the Eibishter. And that's why they end up making the mistake of wanting these Gashmistic things, of getting the hashpah from the klippus, because they think that the shefa Gashmi is the main thing, and that's what they're after.
Can you say about the garlic the same thing? You think the practice is garlic, and you are comfortable, everything is finished. Let's say this is a. Can you say that?
You could say it. It's not the same word, but it's along the same lines. In other words, they ever screamed with a lot of pain about people who are happy with the yeshiva they have. A Rosh Yeshiva who has a big yeshiva and he has 1,000 students, and the Chidushei Torah are flying, and the amount of Torah in the hall. There's a story once of the Baal Shem Tov who came to a town somewhere a shul, and he walked into the shul, and then he told the townspeople that your shul is full of tehillah, of davening, tehillim, and Torah. So they thought that he was giving them a compliment, and he explained to them that your Torah, tefillah, and tehillim isn't going up to Shemayim; it's all staying in the shul. So Al Kopanim said, so they ever spoke with a lot of pain about Rosh Yeshivas, who, their zal is full of Torah. The kol Torah, you walk in, you push it, you're blown away by it, and they're comfortable in Galus. And David says they forgot. What's their mistake? They forgot the Shchinta Begalusa. They forgot that every moment the Mashiach doesn't come, the Eibishter himself is in Galus. So even if you're comfortable and everybody in your family is healthy and should be like that every year, and you have all the money that you need, and not only that, you daven b'kavon and you lead a big yeshiva. Don't forget that Galus is it's not a means. It is a means. Don't forget that Galus is only a means to an end. Yeah. So that's the mistake, but that's the mistake when you get Hanan Asiv Malka, when you get to the Kechavim Umazalis of making a means to an ikir. Then, what if we look on the vart of Mili Bashamayim, that I don't want any of the holiness of the Giluyim, Lamaila, I don't want your Giluyim, I want only you. So these Giluyim, also the highest Giluyim, the purpose and the reason why these great Giluyim, why was the Eibishter Matzel the Eser Spheres and made a Gan Eden El and Gan Eden Atachten? It wasn't so that there should be Eser Spheres Tatzilis, and it wasn't so that there should be a Gan Eden El and Gan Eden Atachten, or that there should be Elam Haba. The Hemrakim Tzoi, the Eibishter created all of this holiness only as a means, Shal Yodam Tushlam HaKavana Pnims Tedira B'Tachtein, so that the Eibishter's taiva of having a dwelling place for him down here in this world should be able to be fulfilled. And it's explained in many other places. In order for that to happen, there has to be Giluyim, so that when we do a mitzvah, we're mamshich these Giluyim into the world, and we slowly but surely transform the world into a place of Heiligkeit. So that's where we have all of these Giluyim. And then ultimately that will bring the atzmas of the Eibishter into the world. But the purpose of all of the Giluyim is not for them themselves. It's that there should be a dira b'tachteinim. So when a Yid says that he does want the Elam Haba, by him the Iker is the Gan Eden Elin and Gan Eden Atachten, or the spheres Tatzilis or the Malachim, v'lei ba'er in Sof, and he forgets the Iker, that he should only want to be connected to the Eibishter himself. So he turns them into the main thing. The great holiness by him becomes the main thing. So by such a person who makes this mistake, what could happen from such a way of thinking and from such a mindset? Taking such an approach to life, such a belief system in life, and a mindset could lead a person to also consider the means of the Kechavim Mazalis to also be an Iker, or the means of Gashmi Selam Haza, of business and other things to also be an Iker, and the Yid could stumble in that Chas v'Shalom. So this is yet another connection between Anan Nasiv Malka rejecting everything in the world other than Hashem, and the Av of Mili Bashamayim rejecting all of the Medegas of Kedusha and wanting only the Ein Sof, because in both cases, the vart that we're saying over here is that you recognize what's an Iker and what's a Tafel, or what's an Emtzai, and you choose only the Iker. According to this, we could also explain the underlying reason why the Yidden end up serving the Eibishter and the Goyim end up serving Kechavim Umazalis. In other words, we explained much earlier in the Maimer that and we mentioned it just now, that by the Goyim the Iker is to get the Hashpah Gashmis, but what is it about the essence of a Goy and where he comes from that causes him to make such a mistake? And what is it about the essence of a Yid and where he comes from that causes him to not make this mistake? So he says like this: why is this? The Goyim, the nations of the world, are rooted in the external ratzon of the Eibishter. He gives us an explanation. It's where the Eibishter wants something, but not because he wants that thing. It's because he wants to get something else. Right? It's like a person who has a business and he's running his business and there's so many activities in the business, but he's doing it only so that he can get the money. The Pnimiyas Haratzin is to have the money. Well, everything else is a part of Chitzenius Haratzin. So the same thing, the Eibishter created this world and he created even Klippus in it, and he created Umas Ha'elam in it. It's not shot that the Eibishter wants the Klippus and the Umas Ha'elam Chas V'Shalom. they're against the Eibishter's Ratzon. The Eibishter wants them for the sake of being able to have something else, that we should be able to have the challenge of a Yid serving the Eibishter in this world and making a dir b'tachteinim. So that's why he created all of the klippas on the Umas Ha'elam. But that's Chitzenius Haratzin. So they come from Chitzenius Haratzin, the Umas Ha'elam. And Chitzenius Haratzin, as it serves, in other words, the very lowest madrega of Chitzenius Haratzin, where it serves already as a source for the nations of the world, in that place of existence, it does not feel, it does not perceive that the Ratzin is sachakul, a means to an end, that the Ratzin is there for something else, but rather over there it's felt that that thing is there for its own sake. Yeah, it's not really that abstract. Like we had before in the mashal of the king who made a feast, and the dogs end up getting from the leftovers that are discarded, they end up eating. So who could appreciate, who could understand that the fact that the dogs are eating the bones and whatever else was thrown in the garbage, who could appreciate and understand that that's not why the king made the feast? The dogs don't appreciate it and understand it. As far as the dogs are concerned, the reason why the bones are there and the leftover meat is there is exactly for them, that they should be able to enjoy it. It's only the people who are aware of the Pnimis Haratzon of the king, who joined the king by his feast. They saw him, and they knew that he made the feast because he wanted to dine with his important ministers. They're able to distinguish and differentiate and say, what's in the garbage is Chitzonius Haratzon of the king. He didn't really want that. The only reason it's here is because he wanted something else. The dogs, who their whole existence is unaware of the Pnimius Haratzon, of what the king really wanted, so they can't make this distinction. They can't discern this. And therefore, what results from this is since the world of a goy, the reality of the nations of the world, is an existence from his source to what he is, to what he sees, are only things that are means to an end, or only chitzenius haratzin, not the pnimis haratzin of the Eibishter. So therefore, they end up choosing the kechavim umazalas. They end up choosing the avodah zarah. However, the sheiros of the yidden is from pnimis haratzin. Shemitzad pnimis haratzin. When you're talking about a person who's in a place of pnimis haratzin, pnimis haratzin, there's already no possibility, no room for anything else. In the pnimis haratzin, the yid is connected to the Eibishter. He sees only the Eibishter and what the Eibishter wants. And therefore, the yidden are sensitive to this. They're able to detect this. Right, it's like a person who knows that there's so many things that he does in his day, and he checks his mail, and he gets his bills, and he pays his bills, and he pays his cleaning lady, he cleans up his house, he does his laundry, all the different things that he does. But the person is aware that these are all just chitzeniistic things. He understands this is not his pnimis haratzin, and this is not really what he's about, it's not really what he wants. So the yidden, al derech zeh, they're able to detect, because they're connected to the pnimis haratzin of the Eibishter, they're able to detect and discern what is a word of the Eibishter's pnimius haratzin, and what's connected to the Eibishter, and what's lahavdil, a word of chitzenis haratzin and his klippus and lumazeh. So they have this recognition. They so too can recognize that all of the gashmis that the Eibishter put in the world is not for the sake of the gashmis itself, for the pleasures that can be derived from it. Rather, it's only to serve as something that helps us serve the Eibishter. And therefore, and therefore they serve only the Eibishter, and they make the choice of Ananasiv Malka. I am connecting to the Eibishter. In other words, because the Yid is aware of, is connected to and comes from the Pnimis Haratzin of the Eibishter, so therefore, in everything that he comes across, he's able to see, he's able to understand. Is this what the Eibishter really wants? Does the Eibishter really want a Geschmack for Shabbos? Yeah, what's the pshat of Shabbos? To have a kokosh cake and a cholent and all the other things, to be able to take a walk and to be able to take a nap, or are all of these things just a word of you have to be mechabed Shabbos, be ma'anik Shabbos? So it says in Torah, you do it through food, some seder, you buy meat. You happen to have cholent, enjoy the cholent also, it's not a problem. But don't turn this into the ikir of Shabbos. So Yid has the ability to understand that Shabbos is a word of heiligkeit. Kivay Shabbos kelm kol melachte. Mashenkin lahavdil by a goy, he's not aware of what the Eibishter wanted in the first place when he made the world. He's not connected to Pnimis Haratzin. This whole idea of Pnimis Haratzin doesn't exist by him because he doesn't come from there. He never saw it, and that's not where he's from. So when he sees the world, he takes everything at face value, superficially. This is here for me, and this is here for me, and that's here for me, and that's where he ends up. All right, next week in Mitzvah Hashem, we will complete the Maimer.
Yeah, you're right. You like it.
Huh?
I've